This is the Player 4 Podcast. Join us each week as we talk about video games, entertainment, and pop culture, and bring in guests from the Rooster Teeth community. Player 4 has entered the game.
It's the Player 4 Podcast, and we are your hosts of the Player 4 Podcast.
Yay! Hello, I am Tristan, aka Shagrazir, on the Rooster Teeth website.
I am Alex, aka Chaos Black 21.
I'm Malachi, aka Sukihiba.
And I'm Joseph, aka J Dunlap.
Yay! Everyone's here.
Group hug.
No.
Aww.
I mean, we would do a group hug
touch.
at RTX, but Malachi's not going, so
He's all
it's 3/4 hug.
Ooh, that's dirty. That's a dirty move.
3/4 hug.
So, today, we were just gonna talk about some things that were going on. I just wanted to mention something quick about Pokemon Go, and then I have a question for everyone.
Okay, well, you can read off the topics, so
I refuse to answer questions.
Well, that's what I'm reading off the topics.
Well, it didn't sound like you
Here
were
are
reading
today's
topics.
topics.
It sounded like you were just going to say, okay, we're going to touch on Pokemon in the question.
What is
Let's
Pokemon?
start.
Malachi has a question for the group. We want to dab on E3, Tristan and GTA 5 Online, because we are buds, me and GTA 5 Online. The Dunl-Apps, Judge Stuff, which is also Judge Dunlap, and getting the flip out of here. There you go.
I like Judge Joseph better.
See what happens when you leave stuff to me?
It, gets all trippy.
Right? So anyways, I just wanted to mention a few things about Pokemon Go. So stuff that they said they'd have in the app way in the beginning is finally being implemented. They implemented trading into Pokemon Go, and there's a friends list finally, and you can send gifts to your friends. The way that they went about it was actually pretty nice. You get bonuses for increasing your friendship with the person from either raiding with them or giving them gifts, and you can see what they recently have caught in the game, which is kind of nifty, and then see their stats, like how many Pokemon they've caught, how much they've walked, and what level they are.
But how do they know that you're becoming more and more like friends? Because you might give me a whole bunch of stuff, but I still am like, Malachi, I only think of you as an acquaintance.
It's days. It takes days. Like the first heart of friendship to be good friends is one day of giving a gift or rating. The second friendship, there's 5 hearts altogether. The second heart is 7 days. So you have to interact with that person for 7 days.
Does that mean once on the first day and then none for the rest of the time? Or
once?
You have to give them something every day? Every
day for 7 days. Or raid with them every day for 7 days.
But if you don't do that, does that cut it off? You have to restart it?
No. It's not it's a cumulative. Ugh.
Cumulative.
Yes.
I see. So once 7 days happens and you've given gifts or raided with me, I am forced to be friends with you and like.
No, that means you're better friends, and it lowers the cost for trading. I think there's also it gives you other things. I don't know all the details. I'm still picking up on it. It's only been out for a week, 4 days ish. It's been a little while.
I'm better friends with Malachi.
What is the cost? Because I don't play Pokemon Go, so I don't know every little detail that's come out. So I didn't even know that there was a cost to it.
For trading?
Yeah.
It's cost of in-game currency. It's a thing. It's using Stardust, which Stardust is used to power up your Pokemon.
So now you have to decide: do I want to trade with someone, or do I want to power up my Pokemon?
Yeah. And if you've never caught a legendary, and you want a legendary from someone, it's 1,000,000 Stardust.
1,000,000 Stardust.
Oh my god.
That sounds like a lot of Stardust. Man.
It is a decent amount. I've never had over 100,000 because I use it before I get there. But yeah, that's just what I quickly wanted to mention was Pokemon Go's finally implementing the things they said they'd have in their app from the get-go. We still haven't seen battling yet. And yeah.
I mean, don't you battle gyms? To do the gyms?
Well, no, per battle between 2 people.
Well, they need to specify that because there's been battling, just not between people.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't specific enough. Yeah, battles between 2 people. Well, Pokemon Go's been out long enough. I figured that, that's common knowledge that you can battle gyms, but I guess I should be.
Tristan and I, the two that aren't playing Pokemon Go, are the ones that are the sticklers for the information.
All right. Anyways, so my question for you guys, I was actually kind of wondering is what is the benefit, or what do you think, or do you happen to know, of collaborations between two games or companies? Because Final Fantasy 14 and Monster Hunter are collaborating, which is kind of cool. Final Fantasy 14 is going to get a Rathalos in their game that they can fight, and a couple items that are related to Monster Hunter in the game. And then Monster Hunter is going to be able to fight a behemoth, which is a very common and staple monster in Final Fantasy. So I was wondering, do you guys happen to know what these collaborations really do for each company? Is it kind of just like advertising for each one?
Yeah, I would say it's advertising, trying to get more players to play their games, because Final Fantasy actually has done several collaborations, at least that I know, on like mobile games.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to play a mobile game called Brave Frontier, and I would still be playing it if my phone wasn't crap for memory storage. But they collaborated with Final Fantasy, so like they would have like Final Fantasy characters. Like it would be like a set period of time that you can play with Final Fantasy characters or enemies, and then at the same time in Final Fantasy's little mobile game, you could have, like, they had Brave Frontier kind of characters in that you could play with or play against and all that. So it's kind of just like an advertising thing, trying to get more players, trying to
get old ones back,
get more popular. Yeah, get old ones back that maybe went to the other games. I think it works out for both companies.
What about you or what about Tristan Joseph? What do you guys think
about Rathalos?
No, the
about collaborations between companies.
I mean, this is less of a collaboration and more of a, hey, can we borrow some of your fan base by putting your creature in? So I wouldn't really call that a collaboration, but I don't know. They've been going on for a long time. JRPGs have had looks or characters from other JRPGs or genres thereof, anime and such like. It's not new. I guess
yeah, I know that, but I was wondering, just thinking if it, other than maybe just advertising and adding some interesting content in the game, like what other benefits there might be for each company. Like, is it just purely just to say, hey, we got this cool stuff that's related to this game in our game now? Or is it like any other actual big benefits from it?
I mean, the big benefit is that you get cross fan base. You expand your audience. That's the whole purpose, is to expand their audience. There are people who might not have ever picked up Monster Hunter until somebody said, oh, there's this thing from Final Fantasy in it. And they're like, oh, I want to play a game that's got a thing from Final Fantasy in it. It's simple business.
That's what I figured. But I think
it usually happens in those type of games, which I don't personally care about. So I think they're really gimmicky. But whatever, people like them. It works. It gains them more business, so it's successful. Yay!
I mean, yeah. Like I said, it happened to me. Like, I didn't play the Final Fantasy game, and then they're like, oh, hey, you could get these characters in this game and the characters in the Final Fantasy game. I was like, okay, I'll try the Final Fantasy game. I never went and purchased anything, made any transactions, but it got me to go and try out the game for a little bit. And
little phone apps are starting to do that. They're starting to do. I wouldn't say it's similar to this, since this doesn't require you to play the other game, I don't think. But there are phone apps that a friend of mine plays, and they'll be like, oh, you'll get the in-game currency if you participate in this event in this other phone app.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just ways to make you get more different phone apps.
Yeah, this is nothing like that.
No, I know, but it's the same premise. It's
Yeah.
the whole same principle. The whole idea is they're trying to expand their audience, and they're the secondary thing is that they're also adding a little bit of diversity, making it's an easy way to make the game a bit more colorful, because maybe they're out of ideas for monsters. They can just take somebody else's idea for a monster, so that'll appeal to a fan base for the other thing, and it'll be like, hey, we got new stuff for anybody else.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I just thought I'd ask you guys to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on it.
I mean, so yeah, it's cool. My opinion of it is
it doesn't really do anything.
It doesn't do anything for me.
It's good for the companies.
Yeah.
All right. Well, talking about different companies, what did you guys, anything in E3 that just recently passed by that you guys were interested in?
Fallout 76.
Have you played all the other Fallouts?
I mean, I started with 3, so no, I did not play the ones before.
I remember the first 2 Fallouts.
Yeah, I did not play those. I played Fallout 3, Fallout 4, which I loved both. I still like Elder Scrolls more than the Fallout series, so I was a little saddened that all we got of Elder Scrolls was just a flyby of terrain. But Fallout 76 looks interesting. I was skeptical at first. I'm still a little skeptical, being a online multiplayer game, but I think if you have friends that also play it and you join together, I think it would be really fun. So Tristan, get Fallout 76 with me.
Get Fallout 76. I played a little of Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4, and like on my own myself, because I wanted to. Beyond that, I really never did Fallout.
You never fell out of Fallout because
I've had a falling out with Fallout.
You've had a falling out.
Which is not to say, nah, I'm not going to do that. But, it's like, I recall Fallouts 1 and 2 and what they look like, but I didn't actually play them. Fallout 76, that could be a fun one. If it's online and I can play it with you, sure, I'll do that, man. Sounds like fun.
Well, you would probably get it on PC, though, if you had the chance, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So
it'd be if they actually made it cross-platform where Xbox players could play with PC players, which Microsoft has started doing that with some games, at least, I believe. At least they plan to.
I mean, I don't know. I hear cross-platform and I always go, Because I remember Shadowrun.
So my only gripe with cross-platform, at least between PC and console, is if it's an online game and it's a competitive game, it's not really that fair because PC players are going to always have a huge advantage on controller players. But if it's like what they're saying with Fallout, where you might fight other players and you might end up dying, it's not essentially hardcore, so you're not going to lose really anything if you die. So in that case, I'm fine with getting.
They steal all your bottle caps.
That's the thing, is that they're saying it's a soft core, so it's not really. They say that you don't lose anything, but it also said. But looking at the little bit of gameplay that they showed, the person who won seems to get bottle caps from beating the other person. But I don't know if that's bottle caps taken from you or if that's bottle caps that they're just awarded, and they're like, the game's like, here you go, you don't take anything from the player, but here's bottle caps for you.
Here's bottle caps. Yay, bottle caps. Oh, I got bottle caps.
It's just something that as they get closer to November, hopefully they'll release more and more details that we'll end up finding out exactly what that system entails. But you said something about Kingdom Hearts 3.
I was being mean and laughing earlier because Kingdom Hearts 3 keeps getting pushed back. People have been biting at chewing at, gnawing at the bit, whatever the goddamn turn of phrase is, waiting for this game for years. I think it first got announced 5 years ago.
No,
I've been waiting since Kingdom Hearts 2.
It's been 10 years.
Oh.
People have been waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 since Kingdom Hearts 2 because Kingdom Hearts 2 ended on a cliffhanger, like all other Kingdom Hearts.
Well, yeah, but then you have to play all those in between games because it doesn't actually get continued.
Yeah, I didn't do that because they're assholes and they put it on all the different goddamn game like consoles and handhelds, and it's bullcrap.
Did you get the remastered ones, the ones that were the 1.5, because those had all those handheld
because
games.
they only released those on PlayStation.
Oh, was it only PlayStation?
As far as I know, it's only PlayStation, and that pissed me off because it's I want to play. I played the first two on the PS2, so yeah, I realized that it technically was always a PlayStation.
Yeah, it was always a PlayStation exclusive until Chain of Memories, which came out on Game Boy.
But the main console games were always
main con what?
PlayStation. The main console.
I heard something else.
No. So the fact that Kingdom Hearts 3 is finally going to be multi-platform, I'm like, yes, finally I'll get to play a Kingdom Hearts game again.
On your Xbox?
On my Xbox.
Ew.
But I would love if they released all the rest of them on the Xbox like they did on PlayStation, but I don't see that happening because they would have done it at the same time that they released on the PlayStation.
I don't know. It might be a good thing that Axel won't be in it because it would be too much for the Xbox to handle.
Well, it depends on how the sales, but I bet if it does well on Xbox, it's like enough people pick it up, they may bring the remastered to it. You never know.
It depends. It also depends on what kind of deal was made between
the companies. Yeah.
The companies and PlayStation or Sony being like, hey, we want these just on ours. We're going to pay you for them.
Exclusiveness.
Yeah.
Exclusivity. But the little, I still remember when they gave a little teaser to it 1 or 2 years ago. It was looking pretty, and then they did more teasers for it, at this recent one, so it's still looking pretty. It's just surprising that it's taking so long. Duke Nukem, the poster child of vaporware, where 10 years of waiting for Duke Nukem, and then by that point there was just no way that it could keep up with modern stuff.
Well, now there's something even worse than that, and that's the fact that Half-Life 3 is never going to come out, because if Half-Life 3 ever came out, the expectations that are all the way up there would just be destroyed.
Yeah, no, the upset would actually cause a part of the world to crumble and fall off into space. So I think that Valve at this point is like, no. Let people keep dreaming and imagining what Half-Life 3 is going to be, because we're not going to put ourselves in that hole. Yeah. Which is too bad, because Half-Life 2 was honestly really good. I never actually played Half-Life, but I played Half-Life. I played Half-Life 2 in episode 1 and 2, and I loved all 3 of those. I played Half-Life. I played Blue Shift. I played, what was the other one?
Listen, I tried to play the first Half-Life, and I got to a point where it was at the beginning of the game, I couldn't figure out where to go. And so I just stopped.
I couldn't figure out. You realize at the beginning of the game there are lines on the ground that tell you where to go?
No, it was like after all the crap went down and like the portal happened and whatnot, and after that, when the head whatever they're called started attacking, the head crabs. After that, I couldn't find where to go, and I was like, screw that.
The denizens, get it?
Yes.
If
there's any more E3 that we want to talk about,
I could just mention that I was kind of happy to see that they're making a Devil May Cry based off of the stuff that's already out, so we're getting a Devil May Cry 5.
I mean, be careful when you say that, because DMC is in fact out.
Yes. But the director for this was the director for, based on the Wikipedia, I looked it up, of Devil May Cry 3 and Dante's Awakening and Devil May Cry 4. and he was part of the last 4 months of Devil May Cry 2. So he is well versed in the universe of Devil May Cry, so there could be high hopes for it.
Malachi, how much do you love the original Devil May Cry?
I really like the series. I like the play style, I like the attitudes of the characters. I just really enjoyed the series.
Okay, I must have misheard you, because I remember before the podcast, you said something about some Devil May Cry.
DMC.
DMC.
Yeah, okay, DMC.
Which was the unofficial Devil May Cry 5. Now they're making an official Devil May Cry 5.
Wasn't that the one where he has black hair or something?
Yes, he's young. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean he's not Dante? I'm pretty sure that's what you meant to say just now.
Sir, yeah.
He's young. No. There's a difference between young Dante and not Dante.
So yeah, I'm hoping to see good things about it. I hope they take it a good direction, and I look forward to it if they do. With who's directing it, I'm a little happier to see that it is him that's handling it and not someone else. The director that did DMC is not the one that's doing Devil May Cry 5. So
all right, then.
That's a plus. Although I am kind of worried because the guy that directed Devil May Cry 4 and 3 and 5 actually was a supervisor director for DMC. I think that might just be for continuity, trying to keep the characters similar. It's hard to say.
Continuity is very important.
Is Devil May Cry going to be like the new Monster Hunter for you, Malachi? Like that's what Malachi's meanderings are going to end up being again?
Depends if they do a good job or not.
I'm not going to meander about it if it sucks.
But anyways, that's just what I wanted to touch base on real quick, is I was looking forward to that. I do need to go back and watch the rest of the E3 stuff, because I only watched like parts. I didn't watch any of it really. So why don't we move on to Tristan and his dabbling and playing in GTA 5 online?
I mean, dabbling is the word for it. So years and years ago, I got GTA 5 for my wonderful little Xbox. I played, about an hour of the campaign, then I was like, I want to get online. The problem I had with the campaign was that there were just so many characters that I couldn't just pick one to like. I had to keep switching between them, and it was so much to try to keep track of, and that was tough for me. Coming from GTA Vice City, where you play one person, playing from GTA 4, where you play one person and it's their story, and you can really kind of grow to like or dislike certain things about them.
3.
I've only played a very little bit of GTA 3. I played, and I've actually played less GTA 3 than I have San Andreas. I played maybe an hour of San Andreas. But GTA 4, I put some significant time into, and I've played through GTA Vice City multiple times. And so I was excited to try this online thing. And one of the things, so I got online, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do anything, and I didn't have any friends I could play with. So I was just scratching my head well, what do I do? There's all these great Let's Plays out, and people playing and doing funny stuff. I want to do that. How do I go do that? I went and found a car that was a replica of the one I actually owned, and which it abruptly disappeared as soon as I went to a shooting range, and then I never played it again.
Wow.
It upset me. And so it's been sitting in my Steam wish list for 2 years, and they kept just oh, this is a 50% off sale. It's it's still $30. I don't want to pay $30 for this game that's going to take up 10 or so gigs of data, and I don't know if it's really going to hold up and hold my interest. So I kept holding off until finally somebody in my friends list actually has it. And it went on for 67%. So I was able to pick it up for $20 instead. I was like, okay, $20 and I have a friend this time. Much more acceptable. Let's give this a try. And so I jumped in. I played the prologue because you're required to play the prologue before you can go online. And I immediately went online because I cannot seem to make myself care about the single player, which is really unfortunate when talking about a GTA game that I don't care. I want to care, but I don't. I jumped online with my friend, and we started doing stuff, and you can just get in a group And, luckily he's a higher level than me, so I get access to all the stuff he has access to. We got big guns, so you can run jobs. I went and found a replica of my car again. I found out how to make it so that it wouldn't disappear. And so now whenever I'm like, all right, I'm coming to pick you up, I come and pick him up in, my car from real life. I didn't even put any stupid colors on it or anything. I just made it look exactly like my car in real life.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's that, we were flying planes, trying to, swim in the ocean, steal drugs, whatever, deliver them to so-and-so. That's the other thing. He has a tendency to get in my car and then start throwing bombs at the police and then say, oh, hey, we're getting chased. What are we going to do about it? I'm like, well, we might not be getting chased if somebody would stop throwing bombs at the police.
But what's the fun in that?
Yeah, I know. I think probably one of the funnier moments that I had recently was we signed up for one of his, we needed some ship sank, and we had to fly a seaplane out to the ship and then scuba dive down to the ship to get the medical supplies that were on the ship, then get back in the seaplane and leave. That's how the mission's supposed to run. Instead, how the mission ran was I flew the seaplane out there. My friend couldn't figure out how to attack the other guys who were trying to steal the medical supplies. So instead, he jumped out of the plane and was swimming around while they were all shooting him. And he died multiple times doing this. He just kept respawning him on the shore, and he would swim back out and die again. They finally shot down. I landed the seaplane next to him and said, get in. I've switched the controls so that you can do it. And he ignored me, and then I got killed. So now we're both sitting on the shore. They're still floating around out there. We still need to get the medical supplies. And he's like, I got the solution to this. And he pulls out a rocket launcher and shoots it, and it blows up the plane. I'm like, why did you shoot the plane? Shoot the bad guys. He's like, oh, I didn't see the plane there. So now we had no plane. So that's
Did you end up actually being successful?
No, we completely lost because he blew up the plane.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, well, what's the plane doing there? I'm like, the plane was there because I landed it to pick you up and you swam away from me. Like, oh, I didn't hear you say that. I'm like, yeah, and then you also didn't hear me when I said, make sure you don't shoot the plane. So that's...
I think he has selective hearing.
Or
he is very selective hearing.
Didn't know you were good at reverse psychology, Tristan.
Yeah, I know, right? I should have told him to shoot the plane and don't get in. Then maybe he would have gotten in.
Well, that's cool that you were able to enjoy it. You're probably going to be dabbling in it again.
Yeah, play it here and there. I still haven't really figured out how to make money on my own, but we ran a heist together, which allowed me to get a 10-car garage, and that's about the most impressive thing I've done so far. But that's pretty good, because now I can just, if I spot any car I like on the street, I can just be like, yoink, and put it in the garage. Of course, some exceptions apply. This is what blows my mind. If you can grab any car you see on the street and drive it around, but if you're like, I want to keep this, depending on what car it is, you might take it to the place where you can go and buy insurance policy on it, which is how you make it yours. And they'll be like, no, you can't. And you're like, why? And because you stole this car, it's too hot. We can't put an insurance policy on a stolen car this hot. And you put insurance policies on my last 8 stolen cars. They're like, yeah, but people don't want those cars. So I grabbed something that looked like a cross between a Lamborghini Countach and a Diablo. And I'm like, this is a pretty hot car. And I drove it up. I'm like, I'm going to make it mine. They're like, no, too hot. You can't customize it. What? I asked my friend, he's like, yeah, they're that high level, high end. You have to buy them legit from a dealership. Otherwise, you can't have them.
Well, that's kind of makes it a cool exclusive thing that makes it so people can't just go and get whatever they want. It makes you have something to work toward, which is a bit logical. It's kind of cool.
Yes, I mean, some of these things are ridiculously expensive. If I want an apartment, if I want to get a nice apartment with a 2-car garage, it's $1 million. I'm like, oh. How much have I got? Oh, I've got 10,000. Okay. We're gonna circle back on this, and maybe sometime next year I can have this.
Well, that's cool. We're glad you're enjoying it now, and you finally got to get into it. So we're kind of missing someone here.
I mean, I think he's there.
Oh, he's there.
He might have fallen asleep.
Yes. I'm kind of doing what Alex had to do the first year of the podcast. My internet's so bad, if I try to talk, I'm probably interrupting someone.
Well, why don't you enlighten us about your Dunl-Apps?
Joseph.
I just want to say, by the way, I agree with everything that's been said up to this point.
Wouldn't change a thing?
Yeah, it was.
I wouldn't change a thing.
All
All right, guys. Dunl-Apps. Is that how you're supposed to say it, or is it just Dunl-Apps?
Dunlap is fine.
You say Dunl-Apps because it sounds funny.
Slate's going to have how it looks, so it's fine.
That made no sense to me.
It's going to have how it looks spelled. So it's gonna be DUNL -apps.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's a dash. Okay.
I think so. I think that's what I made this. I've already used the slate at least once, maybe twice.
I call them high funds because they're fun.
Nice. Okay. My recommendation for an app is one I just started using a few days ago, Duolingo.
Oh, yeah.
I would not be surprised if Tristan has used it.
And I use that.
I think I've heard of
I'm
Duolingo.
learning 2 or 3 languages via it, including Russian, practicing my Japanese, and German.
I'm going to give a quick review of Duolingo because as a magic judge, which is the next topic, I will be traveling, hopefully, more than a little bit. And during the school year, for example, I can't take on jobs that take me away from teaching on a Friday or a Monday, so my options are limited. However, I decided it'd be a cool idea to get a group of judges together to pitch in on Rosetta Stone for a small handful of frequently spoken languages in Magic, which would be, other than English, French, Spanish, probably Spain Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese. That's the Latin languages I feel like would be important. Maybe Italian, maybe. And then Asian languages, Korean, Japanese, and I would have to research which Chinese language is most common. But I'd like to brush up on my French. Until I get a group of us, like an adventuring group in D&D, it's like you speak that language, you speak that one, and we pitch in on getting Rosetta Stone as a group. I thought I'd try Duolingo. And I have some good things to say about it, and I have some not good things to say about it.
Do you want to touch up on your French so you can pardon it more?
Kettle.
Start with the good stuff.
Good stuff is that it's good for reinforcing stuff that you want to learn. You work on a topic until you reach level 4 on that topic, and then you're not required to do it anymore, but you can go back and review it. And getting to level 4 requires, I think, 9 reps from level 3 to level 4 of going through the lesson 9 times. And it adds different variations. Sometimes you have to actually say something into the mic. Sometimes you're just translating from one language to another. So it's really good for solidifying your knowledge of a word. Whereas if you were to take a course, at least in my case, if you can pronounce the words and you halfway know what you're doing, you get an A. But in this case, I can't fake it because the app is making me do things. How about that, right? That's the good critique. And my son, Michael, is having fun with it as well. He's getting frustrated. He's having trouble remembering words, but I think it's mostly he's not trying to challenge himself, and he keeps cheating by clicking on the word to get the translation before he does the translation. So it's causing him some trouble now that I'm not letting him do that. Now we're going to get to the negative critique, which is it's counterintuitive to be learning a language and have to go back to English. Would you agree, Tristan?
Counterintuitive to be learning a language and have to go back to English? Do you mean that you can't use the language you've been practicing to talk to the people around you?
I mean that the app requires you to constantly translate between the 2 languages, between English and whatever you're learning.
Rather than actually starting to think in the language.
Yes, which is what Rosetta Stone does.
Right.
Now, my issue isn't, it doesn't sound as bad when I say it out loud as it actually is, which is I'm constantly
I do know what you mean.
taking a... Yeah, you know what I mean. Because you take a sentence in the entire sentence structure of the language, and then you have to translate it into English with perfect English sentence structure. So it's a bit frustrating because, for example, for French, we put most of our adjectives after the noun. Mm-hmm. So she has a dress red is one of the common sentences. And then, you know what I'm talking about. It wants you to put in perfect English sentence structure, but that prevents you from thinking in French. Yeah. And it probably gets worse in languages that aren't like English, such as you were learning Russian.
Russian got pretty tough after a while. But I mean, there was also it was realizing that there are Cyrillic letters that look like other Cyrillic letters, and there are very minor differences in how they're pronounced. And that isn't intuitive, and it isn't explained. Like, they don't explain you. When you start learning a language that has a non-English alphabet, it doesn't explain the alphabet to you. It just starts throwing words at you. And so you hear the pronunciation, you see the spelling. I already knew most of the Cyrillic alphabet, but there are some letters in it that I really don't know the nuances of. So what ended up being a real problem for me is that there's a sh sound that looks like a W, like a squarish W, and then there's a zh sound that's the squarish W with a little tail on it. And it's like, what I didn't know was that they're different because the voice in the program is very bad at indicating that those are pronounced differently. And it just tells you you're wrong when you have to enter the answer, when you have to type the answer in. And I would spell out a word and I would use the wrong one of those two letters and not realize I was using the wrong one. It would just be like, oh yeah, you're wrong. It's like, well, what did I get wrong? And then it would show you the right answer and it would look almost identical to what you just wrote, except for that one little letter. Like, well, how am I supposed to know those letters are different? Like, how am I supposed to know when one letter is used and when? And I had the benefit of having Russian speakers around me at the time that I was doing this, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, that's growing up with the language, you easily identify those differences." I'm like, "Yeah, great, thanks."
You actually touched on another point. Another problem with Duolingo is without guidance, you can't figure it out. Going into it with either someone who speaks the language or having already learned some things, you actually have an advantage. For example, already knowing how to pronounce French, I'm able to understand, as you noticed, when the sample speaker's not saying it right.
Yeah.
You know, you have the male voice and the female voice. Mm-hmm. And they seem, at least with French, to have a different dialect.
Oh, no.
So while the male voice is pronouncing schwas at the end of words, the female isn't. But occasionally the female voice pronounces a vowel kind of lazily, like it's not 100% the vowel that you're taught, and it's kind of in the wrong place in the mouth. And I imagine it was probably similar with Russian.
Yeah, with Russian, constantly I'm like, what word did they do? Especially the ones where it's like, listen to the sentence and then write what you hear. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm screwed. It's like, I can't tell what they just said because their pronunciation is crap. And it's not their pronunciation exactly that's great. It's the quality of the recording sometimes.
I feel like if you're going to do voiceover for a language learning software, you need to take some care with your pronunciation so it's clear what you're saying, as opposed to just having a conversation with a native speaker.
You must enunciate.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going for there. Another issue was, well, it's just along the same vein. I did a lesson in Spanish. And I had a native Spanish speaker next to me while I was doing it. She was helping me because I would say, I can't tell how they're saying that word. And she would say, oh, you say it like this. And I'd say, okay, I wish that's how they said it because it's totally not how they said it. And I said it back to her the way they said it. And she said, yeah, that is how they said that. Now you say it like this. And it'd be in a completely different part of the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so in some ways, it's not even an enunciation issue, but it often is.
I would say that Duolingo works best as a practicing program, like keeping your skills up, an upkeep program. Because like I use it for Japanese, and I'm already, like an intermediate, moderate Japanese speaker, and so I use it for that, and it's good. The reason that's good for two things, because I can pick out when they're doing something wrong, which helps me, being able to identify somebody else's mistake helps you learn things better, helps shore up your own knowledge. And then just anything else is like my knowledge of Japanese came from like 3 different people teaching me at different times. And so we use different parts of the language. And so will sometimes be like the examples will be something simple, talking about clothing or parts of the body or something. I'm like, yeah, this is stuff that I actually didn't learn because I didn't have a formalized structure for how I learned. I just learned conversational, and we just never happened to talk about that. I'm like, oh, I just learned how to say that article of clothing.
The best way to put it then is it's not the greatest for learning, but it's really good for exercises.
Really good for exercises.
Yes, it's very good for reinforcement.
Right, and reinforcement's a good way to put that. As Joseph says, it helps a lot if you've got someone else who's more knowledgeable in the language to back up or explain things out of it to you. So, have your person helping you learn the language and be doing Duolingo when you're not talking to them. That way you can come to them and say, hey, I saw this word in Duolingo and I didn't understand the pronunciation, whatever. And they can say, oh, that's this word, works like this. Really useful for that. Like, that's what I was doing with Russian all the time. Like, I don't understand why it's spelled like this. And he'd explain why a particular letter was used over a different one. Because there's a lot of letters in Cyrillic that do similar jobs. And I could never tell when one should be used over another.
I will say that with guidance, my son was able to sort of figure things out, pronounce things correctly. But I had to explain to him, for example, why it's un garçon and une fille, because it's not explained. And he just didn't know the difference. And he was just saying, oh, that's un. And I'm like, no, it's un. He's like, oh, yeah, it's un. Yeah. Whereas Sarah has an advantage because she's just sort of watching.
Yeah.
She's not learning anything besides oui and non, but her pronunciations is not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
So when she decides she wants to get serious about that in a few years, she will have heard us speaking the language, even if it's broken.
Yeah. I got away from gendered languages. I couldn't stand having to remember what gender different objects are. And I talk to people who speak gendered languages natively. I'm like, how do you even know what is what? And they're like, well, I mean, you just learn it as you're growing up. I'm like, okay, well, I can't learn it as I'm growing up because I'm already grown up. I'm like, all right, here's one. What's the gender of this word? And they'll have to think about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's a masculine. Wait, no, I think it like. My friend from Norway, Norwegian is a gendered language, and I was quizzing him on something. Even native speakers don't always know off the top of their head if a word is supposed to be masculine or feminine, and they can never tell you why. There is no reason why, as far as I can tell. It really started to aggravate me, gendering nouns in languages. I'm like, why? That's why I've stuck with Japanese as hard as I have, because there's no gendering in that language.
Well, I guess I'm experiencing sunk cost fallacy at this point.
What's that?
I've already gone this far.
No, it's fine. I also speak French. It's just there are some words in French that I know the gender of, like une voiture. I know that a car is female. But there are other ones where I'm like, is ordinateur masculine?
And having an E at the end is not a giveaway.
It sometimes can be helpful. I mean, like feminine, but it depends on the consonant before it and the vowel sound that it's emphasizing. If it's not emphasizing a particular vowel sound, then you're right. It's going to have an E at the end and be a masculine word or a neuter word.
One more thing before we move on is, so you unlock through points that you earn new lessons that you can have as little electives. So I'm working on idioms and proverbs, and it's wanting me to give the English translation of a proverb or saying or idiom, but not as they say it in French, but what it means to us in English. And that is not going to help me learn the idiom. I need to learn the saying as it's said in French. Give me the broken translation, if you will, the actual literal translation, and not how we word it. For example, the early bird gets the worm. They have a saying for that in French, but it doesn't mean the early bird gets the worm, but it has a similar meaning. And it's wanting me to translate the early bird gets the worm, so I'm never going to learn it if I don't know what those words actually mean.
Yeah. No, that's what I call the difference between translation and localization. And you need to translate before you can localize.
You know, it says that the insane difficulty is 20 minutes a day, and I do that in a sitting, and I do like 4 sittings a day out of boredom. So we'll see how that goes.
So you did judge stuff.
Yeah, I did judge stuff. I'm going to give a real brief little synopsis of what's been up in my judging world because we are already at 50 minutes, and I have not had a chance to do this since all of this went down. So the last thing you guys heard was my excitement that I've been accepted to work Grand Prix Las Vegas.
Yep.
And part of this I'm going to postpone until the live stream next week, July 4th, because there's just not time. What I can say is I did Grand Prix Las Vegas with my judge buddy Brandon. We had a good time, worked hard. I worked 2 days out of the 4, and over the weekend we were staying with an L2 who had been an L3 about a decade ago when there were L5s, but I mean, It's been compressed into L3, 4, and 5 is just 3. But he was in L3 in the past and let it lapse because of his personal life. And we were staying with an L3 who actually works for the other company. He works for Star City Games, and I see him whenever our work opens. So it was really cool to get to room with those two. The three of us did not work on Thursday. So Brandon worked most of Thursday, and then they waited and they worked main event the next day. There were 2 main events, and they overlapped on Saturday, if that makes sense. And apparently, because I was working on Friday, I was doing side events, and someone said, hey, I heard something is going on with a delay or something. They're like 2 hours behind on the main event. Do you know what's going on? And I said, no one's told me, but I can tell you it's probably the software. And it turned out it was the software. So the softwares that Wizards of the Coast makes the companies use were Wizards Event Reporting, which is for events of a smaller attendance, such as local stores or Pro Tour qualifiers and that sort of thing, and side events. And then there's Wizards Large Tournament Reporter. They're both inconsistent in what they can do and whether they crap the bed or not. And Walter, in this case, crapped the bed. They ended up having a 2-hour delay between 2 of the rounds early on and another hour delay after the next round because it was screwing up the pairing algorithm. They were like, screw it, just play. And then the next round, it did it again. Well, they ended up giving it's sort of a refund. They gave a voucher to anyone who was in the tournament to get free entry in a Grand Prix that wasn't that weekend. But that gets them, coming to events and buying from vendors and all of that. So it works out for them as well. But it ended up being many, many thousands of dollars worth of money that they were throwing away just for PR and customer service. So the 2 guys that we were rooming with got back to the room real late because of the delay. They were exhausted and went straight to bed. So I did side events the first day I worked, which was Friday. My job was I would go up to the coordinator of side events and they would say, such and such needs your help. Go help them. And I would do that. And then they would be fine. I would take care of something for them for a few hours. And I'd come back and they'd say, throw me at someone else. I was basically a bullet. You'd fire me in a direction and I'd do the thing. And then the next day, my job was imagine that you want to do a draft or imagine you want to play in a commander pod or something like that. My job was we used tablets and our phones on a certain website called Kafka, and we would figure out, okay, who is waiting at the gathering point and ready to play? All right, we have a full group. All right, so where in the map that's on this software is there available room? And then we would seat them where there was room and then mark it so no one else would seat someone there. And invariably, you'd be like, why is someone sitting there playing when the map says there's no one there? But, what you going to do? And then the next day, Sunday, I hung out with Brett from the Bona Lisa, our housing group at RTX.
Woo!
Woo! And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what we did next week. We had a good time, and then he dropped me off and he went to some sort of family get-together. And the next day, Brandon and I got an Uber to a hotel in downtown he thought would be good for a buffet. He left his wallet in the car, had to pay them to bring it back. Then we went to the buffet. It was too expensive, so we took an Uber to the airport. And we ate at the airport, and it was good. And then we sat there for 2 hours, and he was like, I want to crack open some packs, because we were given packs at various things that we did. So he's like cracking packs in the airport going, let's see if we get a Karn. And then we took the flight home and visited our judge mentor and then came home at like 2 a.m.
I thought you were going to talk about this next time.
No, what Brett and I did, I'm talking about next time. Because that's an entire other story I would love to talk about when we have time. Okay. But that's in short how Las Vegas went. The rest of the story is that this last Friday, I volunteered to be scorekeeper and run Wizards event reporter for my local store because I was going to be working a Pro Tour qualifier the next day under an L2 who was offering to give me my L2 certification recommendation so I could take my exam. So I did that. I learned stuff. We'd had a great time. He gave me my recommendation the very next day, and I'm hopefully taking the exam this Saturday to become an L2.
I wish you luck.
I'm trying to talk my mentor into letting me take it after the conference that I'm running because she does not want us taking it at conferences that we are in charge of. I'm done. That's it. That's all I wanted to talk about.
Let's get the flip out of here.
So what's next?
Get the flip out of here.
So thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks for sticking with us this long.
Hashtag goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks to the following patrons for making this video possible. Support us at patreon.com/player4podcast.